Hey folks, we are back at the Steele Creek Church and Cemetery in Charlotte, North Carolina, and in this episode we are going to visit some of the more interesting graves that I discovered while walking through this church and cemetery. It's no surprise that most of these are in the older section, so let's take a look at what I found. This is the grave of John Cathy, which is the second oldest grave or gravestone in the cemetery, and it's a stone of a child, and the inscription says, here lies the body of John Cathy, who departed his life March, I can't read the date, of 1767, aged 3 years. So again, this is the second oldest gravestone, the oldest male gravestone. There's 2 or possibly 3 unmarked graves that are a few years older. Of course, we'll never find those. They're unmarked. Let's take a look at this one. Reverend John Douglas. Yes, I believe one of the reverends of this church, going back quite a ways. I'll put his info in the description as well. A little bit of a bio. I'm standing in front of the grave of Humphrey Hunter, who was the 3rd minister of this church from 1804 to 1827. He was born in Ireland in 1755, came over to the area and was quite successful. He was the minister of the church, he was a physician, and down here you could see he was a Revolutionary War hero. So he did quite a bit in the 73 years. So let me read this inscription. Sacred to the memory of the Reverend Humphrey Hunter, who departed his life August 21st, 1827, in the 73rd year of his age. He was a native of Ireland and emigrated to America at an early period of his life. He was one of those who early promoted the cause of freedom in Mecklenburg County, May 20th, 1775, and subsequently bore an active part in securing the independence of his country. For nearly 38 years, he labored as a faithful and assiduous ambassador of Christ, strenuously enforcing the necessity of repentance and pointing out the terms of salvation. As a parent, he was kind and affectionate. As a friend, warm and sincere. And as a minister, persuasive and convincing. We are standing in front of the tomb of General Robert Irwin. It's impossible to read the stone, but the plaque here says he fought in the Revolutionary War. And there's a plaque here as well. I did look up what this inscription says, so let me read it to you. It says, sacred to the memory of General Robert Irwin, who departed this life on the 23rd of December, 1800, aged 62 years. Also to the memory of Mary Irwin, his wife, who departed this life the 24th of March, 1796, aged 42 years. So General Robert Irwin was an original signer of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. There's a little bit of controversy around whether or not there is a Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence, but it's supposedly was signed in 1775, declaring independence from Great Britain. If there's any interest in that, I could probably do a little research and come out with another video on that specifically. Thomas Jefferson actually dismissed the Mecklenburg Declaration as a hoax. So again, there is some controversy around this, but General Robert Irwin no doubt fought in the Revolutionary War, and here we are. Very weathered top. Can make out some of it. I see his wife who departed, and I see the words Robert Irwin here, but it is very difficult to read. This is the grave of Sarah Knox. This is the oldest grave in the cemetery. And as I may have mentioned, there's probably 2 or 3 unmarked graves back here. I don't think we're going to find that, obviously, but this is the oldest burial with a gravestone in the cemetery. And the inscription says, "Here lies the body of Sarah Knox, who departed this life November the 8th, 1765, aged 66 years. And then there's some text that says, "Also a son and daughter of Samuel Knox, children." So I'm assuming there's also children in this grave. I'm not really sure why that's there. If that's standard, practice for the time, I don't know. But it's incredible that, something so old that you could still read this. And then on the other side, way in the back where the stones are, from the mid-1800s, they're very difficult to read. So it must obviously be the materials used. And I believe this is soapstone. I'm glad I found it. First burial with a gravestone in the cemetery. And what's interesting is right next to the Sarah Knox grave is, I believe this says Samuel Knox. But what's interesting is if you look at the date was 1800, but they made an 8 out of the 7. That's really interesting. I can't really read this one too much, so I'll just post something. So the grave here on the left, that seems to be tipping a little bit over, is the grave of John Lees, and the inscription is incredible. I'm going to read this in its entirety. Sacred to the memory of John Lees, who after a fatal illness of 5 days, died on the 22nd day of December, 1813, aged 19 years. He died on the way to Charleston, South Carolina, 5 miles above Monk's Corner. his tender and affectionate father had the corpse put in a coffin and brought home and buried here on the 8th day after he died. He had left his mother, brothers, and sisters with the wish to see Charleston, but was stopped short of his expectations and brought home a corpse to his mother. Diseases are thy servants, Lord. They come at thy command. I'll not attempt a murmuring word against thy chastening hand. That's one incredible inscription. Very detailed. Here's a very interesting marker. It's down in the middle, but there's two sides. Now the right side is the really interesting side, but on the left side it says to continue the remembrance of a child of Margaret and William Patterson, born on the 14th of June 1793, died the 21st of September 1794. What's interesting on both sides too is the word Patterson, right? It's not a letter S. It's the old English character. I don't know what the name of that character is, but there's a character that's no longer used. The letter S would be here. I'll post a little blurb on that. That was very interesting. It was kind of hard to find because, I was looking for a Patterson. On this side, though, it says the continued remembrance of John, the child of William and Margaret Patterson, who was shot by accident in the 3rd year of his age, AD 1770. So that's really sad. Makes you wonder what happened. So unfortunately, this couple lost 2 children. Okay, we're in the newer section. We're in front of the Dixon family, and I think I'm going to make a separate video on this one. But this is the grave of John Craig Sonny Dixon, who was a baseball player. There's some more stats that I think would be more appropriate for a video on its own. So I think what it'll do is we'll just leave it at that right here. Revolutionary soldier. Thomas Greer, son of James and Margaret Greer. January 20th, 1828, in the 84th year of his age. He was twice married. First to Hannah Alexander, by whom he had 4 children. Second, Margaret, who married, these are the kids. Margaret, who married Colonel Samuel Neal, James Thomas. The second wife was Susanna Spratt. See her headstone. That's incredible. That's funny. See her headstone. So let's find her headstone, and it's right next door. It's very, very large. Wow, it's amazing. She was a daughter of James and Catherine Spratt, and second wife of Thomas Greer, by whom she had 9 children. And then they list the children and who they married. Wow, that is amazing. I'm surprised something that large survived all this time. So this is a monument for the first person buried in a cemetery. In memory of the first person buried in this cemetery, a stranger passing through, thrown from horse against a tree and killed near here. So there is no headstone. I'm assuming that this is it. There's no confirmation of that, but there's a stone right here, and there is a marker right here that I can't read the writing on. I'm assuming this is where the person was buried. This is the first burial. So obviously, right, you'd put it right near the gate. Very interesting. Unknown person buried in this cemetery. First burial. Sometimes I'll go to a cemetery knowing what I want to film, and other times I'll just do a walkthrough with no particular subject. In both cases, I like to research what I film. And in this case, I walked past a grave for literally 2 seconds, and when I went home to look this one up, it was incredible. I believe this is probably one of the saddest inscriptions I've ever seen in a cemetery, and I'm going to read this in its entirety. This monument is intended to instruct posterity of a mournful and unusual occurrence in the history of man, the death of 3 children of the same parents, James and Agnes Brown, in the short space of 10 hours, viz. Sarah, John Bigham, and Mary, on the night of the 2nd and on the 3rd day of May, 1800. While parental affection heaves the sigh and drops the tears of sorrow, experience of the world and the voice of Christianity say it well. Hush my angry passions, then let each rebellious sigh be silent at God's sovereign will, with every murmur die. So there's a lot of Old English style phrases in here. But what this inscription is basically announcing is that James and Agnes Brown lost 3 children within 10 hours on the 3rd of May, 1800. It goes on to say that even though James and Agnes Brown are suffering from extreme sorrow and anger, they are looking towards their faith to get them through this trying time.